Hello and welcome to the first session of Film 256. Today we are discussing historical avant-garde, the early avant-garde movements. That its history collided with other boundary-pushing stylistic movements in the early 20th century, such as painting, sculpture, even architecture, photography, and even music. From the very early on, a number of filmmakers were rejecting the idea that cinema is primarily a narrative-based medium, and they were experimenting with its limitless possibilities of visual representations. The majority of scholarly works on history of cinema has been on established film conventions, however, and how those conventions are still used or appropriate in contemporary practices of filmmaking, such as those of classical Hollywood cinema. So, what is an avant-garde, or at that time, how it was defined in the early years and perceived? Usually, the avant-garde rejects the conventions of commercial cinema. So, we usually define avant-garde based on what it does not do. When we say everything is permitted, usually we think of avant-garde films. That's not necessarily true. It's true that they reject established sort of commercials of conventions of mainstream commercial cinema, but it's usually the case that they're creating a new structure for the society. That socio-political aspects of avant-garde movements is as important in studying it as its aesthetic criteria. It's not just a movement that detests the mainstream idea of beauty in aesthetic terms. It's crucial to note that it's not just the rules of filmmaking that is broken by avant-garde filmmakers, but also the aesthetic perceptions of the audience. So the norms of aesthetic perceptions were broken too. They were interested in both the audience and film technique. So they were interested in how the audience would perceive something that is different. The main quality of avant-garde movement is different. So how the audience is going to perceive something that is supposed to be just different than what they were expecting. The whole idea for today's session is to give you some historical background, both on the political and ideological uh, perceptions of the time, to see how the viewers make sense, and at that time made sense of the avant-garde cinema. Is it different from today's words? Sometimes is it less shocking today? How avant-garde is seen today is also an interesting topic versus its sort of historical meaning. Usually, we think of avant-garde films as those films that generate a sense of uncertainty under pre-existing social and aesthetic conventions. So the social dimension is an important. It's not just about a spectacle. Majority of the early avant-garde filmmakers inspired by other movements in art like Dadaism, Cubism, Futurism, they had some sort of radical ideas in their mind in creating that sense of anxiety in the viewer about the pre-existing social and aesthetic conventions. The avant-garde artists at that time were trying to violate what is known as the norms of bourgeois modernity, or how it was defined at that time. On the left side, you see the images from paintings, art installations, photographs, and images from the movies made by Lazlo Moholy-nagy, a Hungarian artist. As you see, he used to work in many different media art forms. What you see is the similarity between his painting and how he tried to capture his ideas of abstract painting in cinema, creating some sort of abstract cinema. So he was part of a movement known as Constructivism. And as I said, he was working in different media art forms, but primarily for him, An artist was a machinist, working man, an engineer, an industrial designer, and he was interested in working with plastics in his sort of artworks, even his paintings. And when he started experimenting with photography, at that time, photography was not really a recognized art form as today. Photography would be seen as just a tool for reproduction of reality. But for Moholy, it became a tool for capturing the world from different perspectives, odd angles. Um, Oftentimes, he was photographing from bird eyes perspective, or the opposite, to show speed, to show the texture of modern life and sort of how it's mixed um, with human forms, organic forms of perception. There was another movement at that time known as Cubism. So we see on the left side a scene from Battleship Potemkin by Sergei Eisenstein, and on the right side a Cubist painting by Pablo Picasso. So Cubism has often been credited with introducing the impression of motion into painting by depicting subjects from multiple perspectives. So something that we can see, so the both Constructivism and Cubism in the works of Moholy-nagy is one of the movies we are going to watch for today's session, as well as the two other films. We're integrating the ideas of Cubism um, using or capturing a moment from different angle, expanding the time. There's another figure that I want to talk about as Alexander Rodchenko, a photographer. Again, you see this odd angle that he used to photograph the city, and this sort of you see that the sort of modernist aspects of his photographs, the Russian figure, and you see how the Russian constructivist photograph something again by Rodchenko at the top, again integrated in the Soviet filmmaking in a Battleship Potemkin by Sergei Eisenstein in the Odessa steppe sequence. Futurism was another movement at that time, and that was trying to get the rhythm and seeing photographic medium as a perfect tool to capture the rhythm of the word. It's mechanical rhythm. And even you see in the painting, the painters were inspired by photographers, specifically speed photography. We can trace the history of abstract films to the early 1910s. There were actually movies that didn't survive, but they were chromatic music of colors and motions. But after World War One, um, avant-garde filmmaking inspired by Dada started to appear. The relationship with reality in Dadaist is that it is necessary to replace submission to reality by creation of a superior reality. So modern art is still about reality and is obsessed with reality. It's just trying to offer a better version of reality by removing human agency. Um, like a reality that can be engineered in a better way prior to the invention of photographic camera, for example. Pure cinema was a movement that birthed in France in the early 1920s. It declared cinema to be its own independent art form that should not borrow from literature or stage. At that time, some claimed that cinema was a narrative-based medium, such as theater or literature, and its capacity should be used to tell stories. But pure cinema, and the filmmakers belong to the movement of pure cinema, wanted to return to the medium specificity, to the medium and its elemental origins of vision and movement. So another movie that you should look at after this presentation is Le Ballet Mechanique, made by Fernand Laguerre, a Dadaist and Cubist artist. That was made in 1924. The film is showing a number of close-ups, odd angles, and um, multiplicity of perspectives, all to create this rhythmic visual dance. Le Ballet Mécanique is emphasizing on abstract similarities between mechanical objects and the human face and the body, particularly similarities of shape and rhythm. So the spectator is strongly encouraged by the film to notice similarities between their own features and machines. So the ballet mechanics' vision of modernity was based on similarities between machines and so we see even a woman's moving eyes and mouth as being like machine parts, but at the same time, it produces the violent sort of contrast between the two. The last figure that I want to talk about is Vigo Vertov in his film A Man with a Movie Camera. This is the synthesis of all our talk today. I originally wanted that to be one of the movies for this week, but because I personally want to talk about it in detail, and it's a city film, I chose another city film. But actually, if you have time, please watch parts of A Man with a Movie Camera if you haven't watched it yet. So Dziga Vertov, a Soviet filmmaker, student of Lev Kuleshov, belonged to the Soviet montage school, believed that cinema can offer a better, a superior form of reality. Vertov was a techno-fetishist filmmaker who believed that reality should be transformed by using the machine as both tools and blueprints. He was part of a movement known as, again, Russian Constructivist, and they conceived of the art and the artist as a worker, much like an engineer who produce sort of socially useful objects. So again, because of the Marxist ideology that these filmmakers were interested in, they were interested in the sort of practical use of or practical purpose of cinema. So film should be socially useful. So actually, with the help of his wife, Elizaveta Svilova, Vertov made this film, A Man with a Movie Camera. So the purpose was to see the medium is nothing but an instrument, a tool of improved visions of the artist. So he placed this camera in places that human eye could not at that time see the world from that angle, like putting it under the train, and and just let it go. So all of a sudden, a new perspective is created. It's a documentary, but it sees or it captures reality by a perspective of a machine, something new to the human eye. And that's why he created this term, kino eye or cine eye, which and later he actually wrote a manifesto, and he was trying to call into questions the humanized conceptions of the world, and actually specifically because he would see it as some sort of ideologically driven. So he thought that there's a better, a more objective way of seeing the world is possible by the perception of the machine that doesn't have that rejects human agency. The Kino eye reject actor. The you can actually read his manifesto, similar to the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx. He wrote the Kino eye manifesto in 1920s, and you can read it. It's available in these PowerPoints. A Man with a Movie Camera is a movie that begins with a man and a movie camera.
but you're going to see that immediately he places the camera in a position that human being were not able to see prior to the invention of the camera. And then by editing these documentary images, he creates this visual dance of movements and celebrations of industrial modernity. Something truly cinematic in just a single day, ordinary activities in a single day of a Russian city. He rejected all conventions of cinema at that time: no intertitles, no stage, no actors, no story. Uh, However, it's still very modern. And you see that actually the comparison, as like some people are still sleeping, the city works. And now you see, remember those photographs by Rodchenko. So he's going to place the camera in a very, very odd position and to give us a different perspective about how the city works. Through these rapid editing techniques, we see a continuous stage of visible facts about the city. He believed that the camera was a perfect tool to capture the reality, a better reality than what a human eye would see, that is always ideologically driven. This city film is also about practice of filmmaking itself. Is a very self-reflexive film. You always see the process of making these movies. You always see where the camera is located, how the movie is constructed. Remember the futurist paintings that I showed, how similar it is, this sort of capturing the mechanical movements of industrial world. Those the places, unlikely places to place the camera and view the city for the first time. It's just without really the presence of human agency. That's what he wanted to achieve, to reduce human agency in making this movie and create just the perception of a machine. And this is the scene that I talked about, how self-reflexive it is in this assemblage of image. You see the cameraman, you see the images rapidly. And again, you see the cameraman. It's just the process of capturing this film is also shown to us, and now it's staged. In this scene, he is talking about his future fantasy of a fully automatic camera. If if you make a fully automatic camera and totally reduce human agency, this is going to kind of defy the old bourgeois sort of established art. So in this scene that you're going to watch, in front of the audience, you see the little visual dance of the camera and its tripod for the audience without any cameraman. This is like he believes that the future of cinema should go into that direction. This is Vertov's dream, a mechanical cameraman, because the camera frees us from human perception. Vertov doesn't credit himself as a director, but as an editor. He replaces his own identity with that of a camera. So the kino eye captures reality in a way, with a perfection, in a way that human eye couldn't see. In a self-reflexive way, he's telling us that he's going to show a reality. It's a documentary. He's going to show a reality, but a reality that was unknown to human. Maybe for the first time, the movie moves the speed of our mind. So you see that editing and its process is at the center of this film. We display the screen, different jump cuts, and even the slow motions and fast motions. So again, you see Vertov's wife, the editor of this film, and then like you see the synthesis, the rapid movements of human eye. It seems that the human eye cannot really go on with that speed. It cannot tolerate that rapid editing in that scene is becoming, in a very rhythmic way, faster and faster and faster. The last scene is very important. It's like his final statement. So as you see that the sort of the summary of all the scenes, the camera lens closes a human eye. So it seems that we don't need a human perception anymore. We have something else. Let's see that last part of the movie again. So that last beat, you see again the rhythmic montage, the kind of that was a very radical approach at that time, and you see how it juxtaposed with human eye and its movements. So we are changing human perception. The director is able to replace a different sort of perception, the perceptions of the machine that he thinks is more perfect. In this last scene, look at it again. The kino eye is closing the human eye. So we have something more perfect than human eye.
Apropos de Nice, about Nice, is a movie made by Jean Vigo. Jean Vigo was a French artist who was actually inspired by the works of Gigot Vertov, specifically A Man with a Movie Camera. He met his brother, and the idea of making a movie about Nice as like a man with a movie camera was a city film about St. Petersburg. To make a movie about this French city. This movie is made by a collaboration of Jean Vigo and Hugo Vertov's brother. And I'm not sure. I think that actually Dziga Vertov's wife was also involved in editing of this film. Before that, another city movie was made known as Berlin Symphony of the Great City. The difference was that so in Germany, unlike when I said like Dziga Vertov was a techno fetishist, was kind of had a utopian Marxist utopian vision about technology and the possibility of freeing human, reducing labor time, and so on. A leftist philosopher in Germany started to cast doubt on the sort of liberating potential of science and technology, and they started to see actually technology as a site of distraction. So Berlin Symphony of a Great City is not just a celebration of an urban um, in industrial system, but also is showing the waste of the city, like how the factories were polluting the rivers, prostitutions in the city. So it's not just showing the sort of positive aspects of new sort of urbanism that the Soviets were interested in, and maybe the reason was that like modernity was introduced in Russia pretty late and quick. So Nice, the director Jean Vigo, was the son of an anarchist who was killed by the police when Jean Vigo was 12. He himself became an anarchist, an activist, when he was 20 years old. To avoid World War One or serving in the military, he drank a cup of detergent. Not to cure corona, he just wanted to be dismissed from serving in military. So he drank that glass of detergent. It actually destroyed his life, his entire life, and actually eventually killed him. As a result of what he did, he died when he was 28 years old. He made two feature films that some people say that are like they were among the most important works in the history of cinema. But before actually those feature films, he made these two documentary features, and one of them is the city film that you're going to watch today. So at the same time that he was inspired by the works of Hugo Vertov, He passes his own ideological vision into this movie, and how the city of Nice is shown. So for this week, you're going to see a film by Moholy-nagy, and you're going to see a Ballet Mechanique. And this short film, you can write your discussion post about any of these films or comparison of them or all of them. It's up to you to come up with a specific topic. And just keep in mind that every 4 weeks you have to write one post. But I encourage you to actually write one for this week, so you get feedbacks and you kind of get a sense of what is expected from you in these virtual discussion posts.